Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really interesting audio to unpack today.
Yeah, some fascinating conversations people sent in.
Exactly. And we're going to do what we always do, dig into it, pull out the key ideas. You can get the gist quickly.
Get you up to speed efficiently.
So today, we're looking at, first, ways to actually improve your English speaking and listening. Seems straightforward, but there are some good nuggets in there. And then shifting gears quite a bit, we dive into these really different views on choosing a life partner. You know, love versus arranged marriage.
Big topic. Lots of different perspectives in the audio.
Definitely. So think of this as like your shortcut to understanding the main arguments. Maybe get a few of those aha moments along the way.
Yeah, and what's great about this kind of source material, these informal chats, is how they reveal, underlying thoughts, maybe cultural nuances.
Stuff you don't get from a textbook.
Exactly. Stuff you wouldn't find in, a formal study.
Okay, let's get into it. Starting with English skills. So a really clear point from the audio was about, just listening. Listening to native speakers having natural conversations.
Right.
It sounds simple, but what's really going on there? Why is that supposed to be so effective?
Well, it's interesting because this kind of listening, it sort of subtly trains your ear.
Yeah.
You start picking up the rhythm, the melody of the language.
Melody.
Yeah, like the flow, the natural pauses, where the emphasis falls. Stuff native speakers do without thinking.
Right.
And that's really key for understanding not just what someone's saying, but like the tone, the intended meaning.
Ah, okay. So the subtext, almost.
Exactly. The things that aren't explicitly said, which, more structured learning, like grammar drills, often misses.
That makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like music, isn't it? You can learn the notes, the theory, but you only really get the music by listening to people actually play it naturally.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. And the speakers in the audio mention specific benefits too, like picking up common phrases, idioms.
Yeah, the stuff that doesn't always make it into the textbooks.
Right.
You just start to absorb those little linguistic shortcuts, the expressions people use every day, without even, thinking about it.
So it helps you move beyond just translating word for word in your head.
Exactly that. You start to actually think in English, or at least understand more directly, which boosts your listening, obviously, but it also feeds back into your speaking.
How so?
Well, you start to sound more natural yourself, less stilted.
Okay.
It bridges that gap, between classroom English and, real English, the stuff you hear on the street or, in these conversations.
Gotcha. Okay. Really useful insights there. Now let's switch things up. Social media.
Ah, yes. The endless scroll.
Yeah. Something I think pretty much everyone can relate to, right? The audio touched on that feeling of just getting sucked in. Instagram, Facebook. Almost like it's automatic. Maybe even feels a bit like an addiction for some.
Well, it's interesting to think about the design, isn't it? These platforms, they're often built to tap into our social needs, our brain's reward pathways.
The likes, the notifications.
Yeah, that whole feedback loop. It keeps you coming back, even if you feel like you should be doing something else.
And the conversation you sent mentioned that student, Anna, potentially having trouble with exams because of it.
Right, yeah. That example really brings home the potential impact, doesn't it, on actual productivity focus.
It really does. And the speakers pointed out this isn't just like a student thing. It feels pretty widespread.
Oh, definitely.
They asked a really good question, I thought. What are we actually getting out of all that time? Posting photos, clicking like, does it add up?
It often feels like time invested, but maybe not much real return.
Yeah.
That kind of goes to the heart of being intentional, right? Are we using it to genuinely connect, to learn something, or is it just passive scrolling?
Filling time.
Yeah. Often it's just filling time. But does it leave you feeling, fulfilled or just drained? It makes you question if these interactions are really adding value or maybe just distracting us.
And they did talk about solutions, which seem pretty practical. Things like, setting app timers or just taking breaks altogether.
Simple stuff, but
They're hard to do.
Exactly. It sounds obvious, but actually implementing it, breaking those habits, that takes real effort. Self-awareness.
Yeah.
What was also interesting, though, was the idea of shifting how we use it, making it more positive.
How so?
Like being more selective.
Yeah.
Following accounts that actually inspire you or teach you something.
Yeah.
Be more productive with it.
Right, moving from just consuming to actually like engaging mindfully, asking yourself, is this useful? Is this good for me?
Precisely.
They even mentioned that social media detox challenge idea.
Yeah, which really shows how big a deal this has become, doesn't it? That people feel the need for like a hard reset.
Yeah.
It's a recognition that maybe just cutting back doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes you need a clean break to get perspective back.
So it brings up that bigger question then about our relationship with technology generally.
How do we use these incredibly powerful tools in a way that actually helps us, serves our goals, improves our well-being?
Instead of undermining it.
Exactly, instead of letting it detract.
Okay. Deep thoughts on social media there. Let's move now to the final big topic, marriage perspectives.
Right, the love versus arranged marriage discussion.
Yeah, the audio had this really clear contrast. One person strongly for arranged marriages, another just as strongly for love marriages. Very different approaches.
Hugely different, yeah, and often rooted in deep cultural contexts. Conversation laid out the core arguments pretty well, I thought.
So for love marriage, the main thing was freedom.
Freedom of choice, yeah.
Yeah.
The individual picking their own partner based on, affection, attraction, building that personal connection first.
Knowing the person really well before you commit.
That's central to it, yeah.
And that idea, building a life together based on that mutual love and attraction, it feels like a very powerful, maybe very natural drive for a lot of people.
It absolutely is. The potential for that deep emotional bond, that partnership you choose yourself, that's a huge part of the appeal, a key argument for it.
Okay, but then the other side, the arranged marriage perspective, it's quite different.
Very different. It puts more emphasis on the family's role, their wisdom, their experience in helping choose someone compatible.
Compatible based on what, though? If not love, initially?
Well, things like shared values, family background, education, long-term goals, factors beyond just that initial romantic feeling. It's often seen as more traditional, yeah. And the idea is that love and understanding aren't necessarily the starting point, but something you work on, something that grows within the marriage.
After that foundation of compatibility is set by the families.
Right. So one starts with love, the other aims to build it.
The arguments against love marriage in the audio were interesting too, like the worry that those intense initial feelings, they might just fade.
Yeah, that's a big one. That romantic love, while powerful, can be kind of transient, unstable maybe. So the argument goes that an arranged match focused on those deeper compatibilities might actually provide a more stable, lasting framework.
Yeah.
Even if it lacks that initial, Hollywood spark.
Okay. And there was also that concern about love being a distraction.
Yeah, the example of the friend who struggled with studies after a breakup.
Right. That was a pretty stark example.
It really highlights how those intense emotions in a love relationship can sometimes spill over and affect other parts of your life, your goals, your responsibilities.
So the arranged approach might be seen as less emotionally risky.
Potentially. Yeah. Proponents might argue it offers a more balanced path. You build a relationship within a stable structure, maybe allowing you to focus on career, studies, whatever else, alongside it. Less trauma, perhaps?
And what about the blinded by love idea, overlooking red flags?
Yeah, that came up too. The thought that strong romantic feelings can sometimes cloud your judgment.
Make you ignore problems.
Exactly. You idealize the person. Whereas a more maybe objective, family-involved process might be better at spotting those potential long-term issues or incompatibilities.
So a sort of external check on your emotional impulses?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
The idea is that maybe a more considered, less purely emotional choice leads to a better, more stable outcome in the long run.
But, as the conversation went on, it felt pretty clear there's no single right answer here, is there?
Oh, absolutely not. It really depends so much on individual values, culture, what someone prioritizes in a life partner and in marriage itself.
What works for one person or in one culture might be totally wrong for another.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's why looking at these different views is valuable, I think. It makes you examine your own assumptions. What do you think makes a successful relationship?
Right. It's not about saying one is better, just understanding the different logics, the pros and cons of each.
Exactly.
So, okay, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive then, we've covered quite a bit.
We have.
Yeah.
From language learning to life partners.
Yeah. We looked at how, actively listening to real English can be a surprisingly powerful learning tool.
Tuning the ear.
Then the whole social media thing, the good and the bad, potential for connection, but also that huge potential for distraction, time wasting.
A double-edged sword, yeah.
And finally, these really contrasting ideas about marriage. Love versus arranged. How people approach choosing who they spend their life with.
Highlighting those different values and priorities.
And it strikes me, thinking about it now, all these topics, they seem separate, but maybe there's a link.
How so?
Well, it's all about choices, isn't it? How we choose to spend our time, our energy, how intentional we are.
Ah, I see what you mean. Yeah. Whether it's mastering a skill like language,
Or managing how we engage online.
or making that huge decision about a life partner.
It all comes back to being deliberate, making choices that align with what we value, what we want.
That's a really nice way to tie it together. It's about conscious engagement with our lives.
So, maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Considering how you choose to invest your time and energy learning something new, scrolling through your phone, thinking about relationships, what underlying values or priorities do those choices really reveal? About you, maybe even about the society we're in.
Yeah, definitely something to reflect on.
Absolutely. Food for thought. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.